Hello and welcome to the Screen Chronicles. I am Colby Griffindale, and with me as always is Stephen Dell Kazachurin. Why do we have funny names? Because today we are talking about Rings of Power.
Yes, we're talking Rings of Power, the first season, the new series that is streaming on Amazon Prime. It came out this year, 2022. It's been in the works, I think I read, since 2017 is when they first announced it. They plan on doing 5 seasons, and it's costing like over $1 billion.
Just a gajillion dollars to make this show.
And it's the most expensive television show
ever
production ever. So yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to start out like we normally do.
We are huge Lord of the Rings fans.
Huge Lord of the Rings fans.
We didn't read the books.
No.
But we kind of were raised on the film. So as far as the lore, we do get some of the lore from the video games, the canon video games, and a lot of the research we do, and we watch a lot of breakdown videos and things like that. But no, we have not read the books. But
I have read The Hobbit. I've read The Hobbit.
Read The Hobbit.
Yeah.
But we freaking love Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
I was telling you, it might be my favorite fictional universe. Among my favorites are Star Wars and Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But something about the Lord of the Rings universe, it gives me a different feeling. That feeling has been awoken in me again. Just the world, Middle Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, but it hits me in a different way than Star Wars or Harry Potter's ever hit me. These always come in waves, so I probably say the same thing when Star Wars comes out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think when I was younger, Star Wars was always the thing I was always drawn to.
Yeah.
And then, and I think the first time I saw Lord of the Rings, I mean, it was just very scary to me.
It was scary. The orcs were terrifying.
Everything was just, I mean, and especially like Return of the King, there's the spiders, there's the orcs, there's ghosts, there's all these like scary things like when you're a kid. So and Gollum always scared the hell out of me. So Lord of the Rings was something I think I've liked more and more as I've gotten older, actually. And yeah, it's just one of those. It's a magical world. It's got battles. It's about camaraderie, which we love, bro moments and all that stuff. That's
to me. There's a very staple moment of like my movie watching life is from Lord of the Rings that I just can remember the first time I watched it. It sort of changed things for me watching, sort of developing a genre that was my favorite was seeing the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yes.
I remember very clearly the first time I saw it. I mean, I was sold, It was one of the best battles, but, Lord of the Rings has always had that magical way when they film it of really bringing you to another world.
Yeah,
and obviously
Jackson's films were just amazing, and I think they really helped define what the sort of fantasy genre was, even in books. Even though it was a film, I think that influenced so many other authors and shows, and nothing's ever felt quite the same though. So
right,
we had, and I think a lot of other fans too. I think we all had expectations and concerns with this first season of Rings of Power, which is set like a really long time, thousands of years before even The Hobbit.
Yeah. And I know a lot of the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, people who've read all the books and know the lore inside and out, have even had a hard time somewhat placing it in the timeline at first.
I think
it's happened it's a second age.
I don't know what that means.
Lord of the Rings takes place in the third age.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's a second age, but yeah, we're talking thousands of years before, apparently.
Yeah.
So things are different.
Things are different. And so we're going to start out here. We're going to give you our spoiler-free thoughts of the first season, and then we're going to get into a complete spoiler discussion where we're going to recap some big character moments, the show, some surprises, give you our thoughts. We'll probably talk about the Lord of the Rings too, just the original and video games and all sorts of stuff. So spoiler alert for like everything Lord of the Rings related once we get there.
Yeah.
But right now, spoiler free, let's talk about first season of Rings of Power. Colby, what did you think?
I'll tell you what, Rings of Power and another show that's very similar to Lord of the Rings, House of Dragon, the Game of Thrones spinoff, they were coming out at this almost exactly the same time. And I thought Rings of Power had sort of a slow beginning where House of Dragon was sort of taking everybody's captivity. It was, it was really holding the attention of everybody else. And Rings of Power is very slowly building, as many of the Lord of the Rings movies do. Like Fellowship of the Ring is probably the slowest of the three movies. Great movie, but they got to set it up. The Hobbit, you got to set it up in the first movie. And that's what I think the first few episodes were doing here was some setup for the whole season. And I felt that each episode got better and better and better. And by the 8th episode, I was feeling a little bit like, I want more. I want a little bit more of this. You're leaving me at a place that I wish another episode. I think it was only 8 episodes. I wish there were 10. I wish there were more. And now I got to wait 2 years because apparently it's not going to come out season 2 till 2024. They started filming here early October, started working on it.
Oh, so but we got
a while. We got a while. But that's how much I was enjoying it by the end. So I overall liked the show. I did. Do I think there were some things that could have been better? Yes. Do I think some of the dialogue choices were questionable, where I feel like Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit dialogue is so like flawless and like poetic and like just amazing. And there were a few dialogue choices in this show that I found a little cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not big deals, it doesn't ruin the show, but definitely some things that made me scratch my head. But overall, I liked it. I thought the acting was good. There's a lot of characters I like in the show. There are a lot of red herrings.
Yes.
That were throwing me off.
I have to say, I was and I think they maybe even counted on fans' expectations of the past and also fans.
They sure did.
And in the world we live in the digital age, where a show just gets announced and they put some actors in it and there's some leaks on what's going on, people immediately make it a social political argument and try and write a narrative of why it's going to be good or why it's going to be bad. And so like there was some things every now and then I would hear that were concerning, but every now and then I was like, is this just like trolls that are mad? And so I mean there was a lot of things I was afraid of.
Cave trolls. They're mad. They're always mad though, aren't they?
They're always upset trying to eat people in the hobbitses. But anyway, though, I mean, I generally enjoyed the show, and I really didn't think it didn't like ruin anything Lord of the Rings wise for me. Right. I would say you said the first 2 episodes were set up. I generally enjoyed the show, but I would say the whole first season to me, even though it had some really cool big things happen, I would generally say it was set up. But what you're saying
100% right. 100% right.
And what you said though with the red herrings, though, everything I was trying to the red herrings, I think they were even expecting fans to have preconceptions of what they were going to try and messages they were going to send and things that they couldn't get right. And the fans were, expecting things to be the same as before kind of thing, because there were some things I was like, oh, this, like they're doing the same thing with this guy that we already saw. Yeah. Like 2 times. Right. And oh, like I know who this guy is too. Like, of course, they're gonna make him seem he's this way, but he's really this, And like both of those things were like switched on their heads for me.
Exactly.
And I didn't see it coming. I was like, yeah. I mean, one of them I kind of saw it coming, but the other one, completely surprised, completely, and it was cool, and I liked it.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about that too. And having watched some really hardcore Lord of the Ring fans, they predicted a lot more than I ever did. Yeah. Watching the show, they were on to some of those red herrings about certain characters when we get into the spoiler section, like early on, which I never like. I guess I love Lord of the Rings.
Second watch would you be like, oh, I see this now. What's going on?
I think so, but I think it was still pretty subtle with the thing we're talking about. And let's not talk too much about it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
When we get into the spoiler.
I would say also I
Yeah.
generally really liked the way the show looked. I mean, it just
Yes.
felt like you were in Middle Earth. It just
Beautiful.
the cinematography, the effects, you know,
And it better with the money they spent on it, you know.
right? So,
Now,
but like, I feel like a lot of fans, when I was watching stuff, they were almost like upset. They're like, well, I guess money can buy you. So and I'm just like, just be happy. It looks like what we want it to look like. And it looks
I thought
good.
so. Here's the thing is the show is not getting good ratings from the audience perspective. I mean, it's what 3 point something on Amazon.
Oh, really?
And I was seeing that 4 episodes in, and I'm like, wow, then people aren't even like finishing the season before they rate the show. And then it's like 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think 39%, which I think is pretty low for the show from the audience. It's 85 critic score, which I think is fairly accurate, but audience score is low. And I think I'm a little surprised it's so low because I really enjoyed watching it.
Again, I think some fans were just committed to hating it before it even came out. And I think
similar to like Star Wars fans, I think in some ways, like that are any deviation from the sort of the canon is not okay. But
I have high hopes for the show going forward. I think
I have high hopes. I do.
And I like that they have a plan for how many seasons they're going to do. I'm hopeful that unlike the Game of Thrones series, that they already have an idea for the ending. Yeah. And I hope in their head they're going to be having some satisfying things. And I would say another thing I really liked about the show was one of the things I liked about Lord of the Rings, and one of the things we like about pretty much everything that we like is like the bro moments, like these moments of like camaraderie, these wholesome bonding.
There are some good ones in this.
You know,
there are some good ones.
I felt like they kept those. You know, to me, it felt like they knew what the spirit of Lord of the Rings was. Why? People like Lord of the Rings, and I never felt like they were ever pushing messages on me. I never felt like like they were disrespecting something. Like I feel like that's a lot of people. Like they were saying, you know, for instance, like I know a lot of fans were before they even saw the show, they knew that there was going to be some characters in this who were black, and they were immediately, you know, like, well, they're trying to push, you know, social political things. It's a fantasy made up world. So like, why can't black people be? There's elves.
There should be even more diversity. I mean, come on.
So like,
I don't get people that have that issue.
For a fantasy world, I don't care. For if it's like a historical fiction thing, and you're just like half the town is black, unless like again you're trying to like what's the play with Hamilton? That's it. Like again, there was like a reason for that too. You know,
that's the point. To show that the U.S. is made up of immigrants, which I think is a pretty powerful message.
So with the fan reaction, I just feel like there was some who just they already had it in their head what they were going to be mad about. They saw the first 2 episodes and they're like, "Yep, I don't like these things. These things confirm what I already thought."
The bad ratings came in real quick, real before the season even finished, and I thought the last episode was the best episode, one of the best episodes. Also, another big thing I liked about this first season that I know you really liked is we got fantastic looking orcs.
Yes.
I mean, we had fantastic looking Uruk and orcs in Lord of the Rings. They were makeup and prosthetics or whatever. Real people wearing the outfit, and it was terrifying. They went to the Hobbit and they used CGI. And it looked fake. It looked really fake and was a lot less menacing than the original. And now we've reverted back.
Good. It just didn't.
It was
have
good
that,
CGI.
That element of like
this is real.
Like all this gross stuff on their face, and like the actors able to like make their mouths move in these weird ways. You know, like there wasn't all of.
Not as terrifying. It's just not as terrifying. And they went back to terrifying looking orcs.
They creep me out.
They creep me out in this. It's great. So that's what the last really big thing I liked. But should we rate this before we start talking about spoilers?
Well, what are some things you didn't like? You said you didn't like.
I said that, so there were a couple dialogue things I didn't like. You know, there wasn't really a great like if you think of a character's journey and you think of like sort of how there's supposed to be a climax and like the plot and a resolution, it didn't really feel like that. So it felt like going into the last episode, there were just a bunch of different storylines that were sort of lingering along.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a good story arc.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I think this whole first season is a big setup.
Yeah.
It's a lot of setup, which I think if you've seen the movie Dune, I felt like the whole first movie Dune was a big setup for what a fantastic franchise that should be. And yeah, so I just didn't think it was a great story as far as like riveting, but it kept me interested though, and it kept me like wondering who is this character, which I found fun. It was fun to predict. It gave us a lot to like sort of like guess, and I had a lot of patients who were watching the show at work, and it was a nice conversation piece. Like, oh, I think he might be him because of this reason, So that was kind of fun. I like when shows do that. But overall, those are my big critiques. Yeah, maybe there's others as we continue to talk. What about you?
No, I would just say I think there was like combat throughout the show, but there was really only one battle, I would say.
Yes.
And I wish there was another one. I wish there was one in the last episode of some kind. The battle they did have was good, but I wish there was more. Hopefully they do more, and I'm willing to bet it'll get bigger as the show goes on. But I wish there was more. And one thing too, I guess just generally kind of like what you said, the pacing, because of the setup, the season, it was just, the pacing to me was just kind of like every now and then I was just bored. I was like, here we go. We're still talking about how Numenor is over here and they don't do the thing in Middle Earth because they're Numenor and blah, blah, blah,
and the king's still laying in bed.
And the king's in bed. You know? So I mean, just the pacing every now and then. Like again, they're setting up so many characters and plot lines and lore, history stuff.
You kind of have to do that. I feel
like there might have been a way to do that still more interesting. I don't know.
It could be. And like I said, I was still interested in the show though.
Me too.
But there could have been a better story arc, I guess.
Because I think if you're talking about shows that have all those things, to me, again, The Last Kingdom is like the prime example where they have so many things and they set it up and you're never bored. At least the first 3 seasons.
I never heard of it.
You never heard of Last Kingdom?
No.
You should check it out. It's on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
It's 5 seasons. I
think. Is it totally made up? Like totally fake?
Totally made up fantasy world. There's this guy, Alexander Skarsgård, who has a top knot, and
I'm trying to get you to.
No, The Last King's amazing. It's our favorite show.
It's amazing. It's our
and
favorite show.
If you're new to our channel, if this is the thing you're discovering instead of The Last Kingdom, which I really doubt, but if you are, then make sure you check out The Last Kingdom and then watch all of our Last Kingdom stuff because it's freaking amazing.
It's amazing. Any Lord of the Rings fan, I think, would love The Last Kingdom. Yes. I really do.
You really would.
I really do. Anyway, let's give a little bit of rating here.
Yeah, after that, we're gonna get into our spoiler talk. Let's go rating. Colby first. What are you giving it? Score 0 is the worst. 10 is Helm's Deep. What do you
Battle Helm's Deep? I'm going a 7.5, which I think is a fair score for the season. 7.5 is a fair score.
I'm going the exact same number, 7.5.
Okay. One thing we can do better than any creature in all Middle Earth: stay true to each other with our hearts even bigger in our feet.
We didn't even plan.
Could have been better. No, I know. Could have been better, but I don't think it was lower than that. I don't think it was a 6 out of 10. I think I was more interested and it was more compelling than that.
Enjoyable show, just pacing, setup, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I have it really left me with high hopes.
We're going to get into spoilers now. Spoiler alert, everyone watching, listening. We're going to cover the first season of Rings of Power and anything Lord of the Rings. We're talking about all 3 movies, The Hobbits, or all 6 movies, I guess I should say. Video games. Colby has played I've played a little bit of Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. Everything is going on. So spoiler alert for all those things. let's start out. You want to talk about the big reveal at the end? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can. Let's start at the end. That sounds good.
Penis.
Yeah. So you watched the wrong Rings of Power, brother.
Rings of Power, my precious.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. That sounds like a good video.
Do you want my ring of power?
Here, put this ring of power on it. It will really enhance your experience.
Oh, Galadriel.
Anyway. So yeah, here's the thing we didn't see coming. Penis.
The Heartfoot.
Oh my god.
The Heartfoot are not hobbits. I mean, how surprised were you?
Terribly surprised.
I mean, the whole time I was calling them hobbits, and then I think finally, I paid attention, and someone said,
"Yeah, the Harfoot."
We the Harfoot, and I was like, "Holy shit, you're not." So I mean,
yeah, they are actually a different. They're like their predecessors. They're like ancestral predecessors, I think, of hobbits. I think, back in the day, there were 3 different groups that were similar in stature, and I think they kind of sort of evolved into hobbits. That was the biggest twist of the show.
What a twist! I mean, that really sums up the show, though. So I mean, it's like we always say.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. No. Anyway,
so all the way from the first, we had just a great opening to the show where Galadriel we see her, I think, the first time as a warrior elf leading this band of elves to sort of take revenge on Sauron because there was a vendetta against him going back to her brother who had died. And we get a ton of cool lore in this beginning, and we get the whole thing with there was no sun, there were 2 trees that was like that lit like lanterns, the Valnor, and she goes all into how like the original Dark Lord Morgoth and his rise and how he had a lieutenant named Sauron. And they fought back against him, and eventually she really emphasizes her goal was to find Sauron and kill Sauron, right? So that sort of established this thing in the show that, she's never been able to find and track Sauron down, and that, maybe we are going to find Sauron in the show at some point. And the show repeatedly gives us red herrings in the season. They even have a character, and they give him like a glove that looks like Sauron's glove, and he's tall and with dark hair and looks evil. His name's Adar in the show. Yeah. And they totally try to make you think. They even when they introduce him, they even in the next next week's episode, previous episodes thing, at the end of it, they say Sauron's name and they show him, trying to make you believe that he's Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out he's not Sauron. And then the last episode, there's the 3 mystical women who are tracking down the stranger, and they tell him he's Sauron. Turns out, I was like, what? That's nuts. It doesn't feel right, but it's nuts. Turns out he wasn't Sauron. And the one guy who ends up being Sauron is the freaking guy who is in our face the whole show. He's just been there. We thought he was Aragorn's version of Aragorn in the show or something.
As soon as Galadriel, and we're talking about, what's his name? Halbrand. Yeah. So Galadriel met Halbrand out on a ship, and since then they paired up. They went to Numenor, and she was like, "Oh, you're the old lost king of the Southlands."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I've done bad things," and the whole time I'm just like, here we go with another Aragon, the same as like I forget the guy in The Hobbit, but he was pretty much like an Aragorn to an exiled king, and who was, and I was like, here we go, like do we have to do the same thing again?
Yeah.
And the whole time, and then they even when they rescue the Southlands from the orcs, well, they think they rescue the Southlands from the orcs. Again, like everyone's bowing to him, and I was like, this is cool, like this is nice. But I was like, at the same time, it's like, we've seen it though. Like the Lord of the Rings already did this. So then at the end, the twist, I forget what, but when they're starting to make these rings of power.
Yeah.
And
by the way, when he was in Numenor, he was very, very skilled craftsman and blacksmith. There we found out, and he's talking about how he had a great training for it, and he's like way better than the blacksmiths in Numenor, which Numenor is a very high ranking society, right, of men. But anyway,
even when he came across, that was good. And even when he came across then Celebrimbor. I'm gonna fuck up all these elves named people. And when he came across Celebrimbor, then she starts noticing, oh, he's like telling him things to do, and then he even said a line about like power and something like that, and she's like, where did you hear that? And he's like, from all
over flesh,
power over flesh. And she's like, wait a minute. So she then tries to check up on the king of the Southlands lineage, and there is no
right
heir. And
she realized, oh, you trickster.
And like the whole time, her goal for why she didn't ride off back to basically the afterlife, but where the elves are from, was to get revenge for her brother. That's been like mission. That's like her main mission. Like when you're doing a video game, main mission, and then you have all your side quests. Like the Southlands thing and the rings, like those are all side quests. Main mission, kill Sauron. Like that's the main mission.
She's like been hanging out with this dude all episode, like all season.
And the reveal for it was so fun.
It was a fantastic reveal because Sauron like gets in her brain like Voldemort to Harry Potter, like crazy. By the way, there was a great video I think I saw on TikTok, who would win, Sauron or Voldemort. Fantastic kind of debate. We could talk about that later. But yeah, great reveal. And I thought too, when he was talking to Celebrimbor, who we knew going into this was the guy who created the Rings of Power. He created them. And you learn that more about that too in the video game, where you get to play as Celebrimbor in Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of War. Yeah, he's a wraith, and he basically joins with the male character, the human character, and they become this like
crazy, I didn't realize he was force. The wraith thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he's trying to, get back the ring and stop Sauron, but he's also a very interesting character in that, like, he's not totally good in Shadow of Mordor. Celebrimbor, he's a little bit, obsessed with the power, So anyway, it was interesting to see sort of an older version, like less formidable, because in the video game he's a freaking badass, and in this he's just kind of an older guy who's he's like just known for making cool stuff in his workshop. And I thought it was, but to get back to my point, I thought it was so interesting that Halbrand, okay, we knew he was he's a from the Southlands of man, and we've always seen the elves be superior to men and humans in the show. And here he is saying to Celebrimbor, regarded as the greatest elven smith of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saying, like, giving him tips that even like Celebrimbor's like, yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, when that was first happening, I was like, I get they're trying to make this kingly guy seem even more noble, but I mean, like, how did this immortal person who is in armor, a blacksmith for the elves, how does he giving him tips? I'm like, come on, show, what are you doing?
But now it makes perfect sense, because now that we know he's Sauron was trained, obviously, by Morgoth.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
He was trained, and he was trained even before that. So now it makes perfect sense because Sauron's been around since the freaking way, way back. Before I forget what he says to her, but
He's been around a long time, and
and
he's a wizard, right, or something like.
He's part of the Maiar. It's complicated.
Like these immortal wizard thingies. Kind of like Gandalf is a Maiar, but he's a Isaril or something like that.
Istar. He's part of the Istari.
Star.
But anyway, the reveal scene was amazing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Like they go back to that scene where they're on the raft. Like that's when they first met because Galadriel had jumped off the elven ship and
was just swimming back home.
Yeah, and was swimming because, by the way, Galadriel was basically mutinied by her guys. Like they were just like, we're not following you anymore because she was kind of going a little crazy and putting them in danger and just trying to find Sauron, who they couldn't find, you know. So she's on the raft with him again in this vision, and dude, when they stood up and looked at the reflection in the water, that was amazing.
That was awesome. Well, I mean, even just before that, when it's because the whole time they've had like this sort of camaraderie going on, and you're like, are they going to be romantically involved or what? And
right,
and so like they're holding hands, and he's like trying to like win her over with like, come on, we can rule the world, and then she's like, but you want to make the world a better place, but you really just want to be in charge, though, is the main thing. And he's like, what's the difference? You know, like
yeah,
I still want to do what I want to say, you know, and then yeah, they look down in the water, and then like there's this moment where they're like zoom in on both their faces, kind of like with a wide angle lens, and they're just like, screaming at each other.
His eyes like turn black and freaking awesome and dark, and then when they look in the water,
we're the one who brought Sauron back. And just like screaming at her with that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
She freaking made him a king of the Southlands. Like she like helped bring him back to power, you know? And
oopsies.
Yeah, for real. So now some things make sense. But what I'm talking, the shot where they look in the reflection and you see him in the Sauron like silhouette that we know, with the crown and everything, and she's looking powerful too because he does want her by his side to help rule.
And if you remember, Galadriel's from the Lord of the Rings too. She's this like wise, powerful elf woman witch kind of thing at this point.
It's like an elven witch. Like she's totally different in this show. She's like a warrior in this show.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the show, she's very hard-nosed, stubborn, and like I didn't really like her at the beginning. I didn't find her super relatable or anything, but by the end of the show, I really liked her character. I thought she had really good growth. I know that irked a lot of Lord of the Rings fans, but it doesn't irk me so much that she had growth. I mean, I think it's cool. I think that we just see a different side of her character, and now she's slowly turning into the Galadriel we find in Lord of the Rings.
To me, I don't know. She was always my favorite. I wasn't expecting her to be my favorite because I'm like, I was never like a Galadriel fan watching.
Same.
The Lord of the Rings. I was never like, oh, Galadriel is on screen, or like when they showed her again in Hobbit, I was like, all right, cool, someone from another movie. But I liked her because she was the warrior. I really liked the revenge thing from an elf. I was like, I don't know if we've seen that before, and then I really like just the moment when she's on the boat about to like go basically to heaven, and she just starts remembering her brother, and just like it was emotional, and I don't know, it just got me, and I was like, I'm with you, chick. I'm like, I was a fan of her, for sure. I wanted her to kick more butt. But
I did too.
She did have a cool battle.
Freaking awesome. She was pretty awesome.
That's one thing though too. There's so many elves in the show. And like elves are just like so agile, and like their stats are so much higher than us humans. I was kind of like what's like a normal? I want to see like some Aragon, you know, some fight, you know, like I don't want to see the perfect movement stuff, you know.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Halbrand then, and sort of the things we might have missed. Some of the other Lord of the Rings fans picked up on about him being Sauron.
Sure,
because what you just said, the first time we see him fight is at Numenor. he's getting picked on by these guys. They're being jerks to him, and he's taking it, right? And there's the one scene that I didn't even know, but now looking back, it's so creepy. While like they're surrounding him, they like zoom in on him just staring into space, like looking pissed. And now that we know he was Sauron, go back and rewatch it, dude, because like it's just him knowing like I'm going to destroy all of you. Like someday I am going to have all of you enslaved under my control.
Yeah,
that's probably what he's thinking at that moment.
Oh, for sure.
Then
I think at the time I was just like, he always just seems so annoyed with everything going on. I was like,
yeah,
this is just a moment of him just being annoyed with what's going on.
This is him. Yeah. And then he gets up. I think he makes a joke of it and he walks away and they corner him. And so what you just said about wanting to see some human combat, this was what I thought at the time was human combat. But as I go back and rewatch it, it's pretty crazy. Like he goes ham on them with like his fists, and they stand no chance. And he doesn't just beat them up. Like he breaks the one guy's arm really easily against the wall, slams the guy's head into the wall. At the time I was like, oh god damn, like this guy's awesome.
Yeah.
Now we know why that was probably nothing for Sauron. That was probably a piece of cake. Like,
yes.
Just
so there was a moment. What other moments were like things that you go back to and like?
One of the first things he says to her is like things are not always as they appear. It's one of the first lines he even says to her. There's a part, like you said, you already picked up on one where they were talking about I think before the reveal, when they were sitting together, you know, they were sort of talking about the ruling together and things like that. He was kind of tipping his hand at how much he wants to control things. And that's the thing about Sauron. He's like a control freak. He needs everything to be in order. So there's a few of those instances where he's sort of tipping his hand. There were a couple others. And then the other one we said with the knowledge about making the rings, or the idea how to do it was like,
it's like, why would you know that?
Why would you know that? You know,
oh, you just need an alloy that is complementary to, you know.
Yeah.
I just happen to know this other stuff too.
Yeah. So there were a few ways he tipped his hand, I think, but I didn't see it coming. No way.
And I started to get over the idea that he was like an Aragon ripoff. Like when he was leaving with Galadriel because he was injured. And like everyone's like I don't know what they said, like something like "Long live the king" or something like that. I was like, you know what, like I'm with this guy. I'm with this guy.
I was too. They really got me. The other big one was with Adar when he stabs him in the hand and he says, "Do you remember me?" And Adar's like, "No."
I wonder what happened there.
So I was just thinking like, oh, there was a time when Adar attacked his town or something, and
and I was like, this comes out of nowhere. I was like, why does this guy, like, we've never heard anything about the two of them?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. So that was another time that it kind of tipped the hand, and then, you know, there's when Adar is captured, he asks Halbrand who he really is, and he walks out. He doesn't answer. He walks out. So it's interesting. You know, because apparently Adar is the guy who killed Sauron. That's what he tells. He's the one. And apparently that's why Halbrand wanted to stay in Numenor so bad, was because he was trying to not go near Adar.
Oh, really? He was.
That's just a theory. That's just a theory. But he really wanted to stay in Numenor, remember?
Yeah.
Like really bad. And he was like disappointed. But I'm also on the fence. I'm also kind of like, how much was he trying to manipulate Galadriel to get the Southlands back?
Because if he seemed too eager.
Yeah, if he seemed too eager, and you know, there's even a line Galadriel says to him where she's like, to other people, it's going to look like you used me. to get your kingship back, because it seemed like Galadriel was using him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but maybe he was using her. You know, the other thing was he got injured and had to get treated at Linden, right? By Elvic magic. Did he fake his own injury to get in there? We never see him get injured.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, he got hurt on the road.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, what? Like, how did you?
Yeah. So is that the way he got into Linden, to sort of infiltrate and get those rings going?
Gotta
Get them rings going, baby.
So that was the big twist. I think the Sauron thing, and what also kind of made that twist big for me was the other twist, which was, and I was kind of suspecting, and they haven't said who it is, but when the stranger arrives, the stranger with the Heartfoot, when he comes down, it's a big ball of fire. He's like, and pretty much anytime this guy has done any sort of magic, there's like, sometimes there's like this negative thing that happens too.
Yeah.
So it's always like, is this a dark, evil person who has had like their mind wiped or whatever? And even though they're trying to do some good things now, like their natural, their natural instincts, their natural nature, comes out.
Right.
Like when he lands, there's all the flames around him, and then what's her name? Who's the girl? What's her name?
Nori.
Yeah, Eleanor.
Yeah,
Nori.
Eleanor Brafford. What is it?
Brandyfoot.
Eleanor Brandyfoot. They call her Nori.
Brandyfoot. She and her friend Puppy they find him out in the field in the dark, and like the flames all around him, and then they rise up, and he's like this demonic like yell, and he's just, and the whole time like he never really speaks. He just kind of grunts and very animalistic, and he's
very
all disheveled.
Animalistic. Yeah,
and even when he does good things for them, like he fights off these wolves, like there's this big magic that happens. He does.
It's sort of instinctual.
Yeah. And then like this one time he was showing them the way, and all these fireflies died. Another time he was like trying to help with the field around where they were staying.
Yeah.
He like kills this tree, and
it almost falls. The branch almost falls, and that was like the last straw for them. They're like, all right, you need to leave. You almost hurt one of our younglings here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the next day that they had the proliferation of food, and
yeah,
he healed it, but he was already left,
So there's always been like these dark moments, even, and that one was kind of the one that was like, all right, everything looks way better now. We should definitely, this guy can't be evil, right?
Right.
But then still, there's these three like sorcerer women who are following, who we find out they're following this stranger, and then they tell him that he's Sauron and that he's had his mind wiped. And
because don't forget, Sauron is gone missing. It's Adar said he killed Sauron, but it's not easy to kill Sauron. Like, he's more than just like, he's not just a man, right?
He's power over flesh,
and apparently he has the ability to shapeshift, which is why he looks like Halbrand and like just like a man. And so like they don't even, these people that are looking for him don't even really know what he's going to look like. And they're just tracing this huge power surge that just crashed into the earth. And they assume, oh, it's got to be Sauron because he's been missing. And he's like so powerful. He just doesn't know. And he even says, or they even tell him, like, you have this veil over you. You can't remember your past, but it's slowly coming off. Which explained why this character couldn't talk, could only sort of use his powers like an instinct, and like, he like what the tree thing, when he brought it back, it wasn't like he went like, oh, I'm gonna go fix that tree. It was like he saw a dying tree, and like he just like something in him just forced him to fix it. It wasn't like he like purposely did it. I don't think.
No.
And we do slowly throughout the series see this character start to just talk a little bit more. The big one he says is, "I am good." I am good, and he sort of uses that as a mantra for himself as he's still under this veil. But when they told him he was Sauron, I was like, what?
I
And I thought it felt wrong. It was like, just, I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
It felt wrong, but I was like, I guess I can see this. Let's see where this goes. And a lot of people, I think, when the show was coming out, a lot of people had the theory he was Sauron.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people did.
I was always like, he kind of looks like young Gandalf to me, is what I always thought.
Who I guess in turn could also look like young Saruman, since they sort of look alike in Lord of the Rings. So, now there's also a theory he could be Radagast because of his connection to nature when he held his hand to the tree. I have seen that thrown around a little bit less.
Yeah.
But he ends up saying the line that Gandalf says, follow your nose.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the tell sign that it is Gandalf?
I think it is. Yeah, and it's really kind of cool. There's a lot of origin stories that kind of happen in this show that I wasn't expecting. And the Gandalf, I think it's Gandalf, because they say once they realize he starts fighting against the mythical 3 women, to protect Brandyfoot. They realize, like, oh, he's not Sauron. He's the other. He's one of the Astari.
They say that.
And then he just disintegrates them.
Dice them up. Damn.
Once he gets the staff too. So after that, and Gandalf was an Astari. So I'm pretty sure that's Gandalf. And Gandalf always had a fondness for the hobbits, right? Like, he's like, I have an important mission.
Developed? Yeah. Is this where that developed?
Exactly. And it's
he has that like line. He's like, Saruman believes like that great power lies with I can't remember exactly what he said, but I don't find that to be true. I find that sometimes it's the smaller creatures. There's that great Gandalf line that I'm butchering, but maybe this is where it's born. Maybe this is his experience that later leads to him turning to the hobbits.
And I'm almost wondering if these Heartfoot evolve into the hobbits, because
I'm pretty sure they do. I think they're just an earlier form of the hobbits.
Yeah, they're halflings, and then they're also like, they just had all their carts destroyed and all these things. And I'm like, I think Gandalf just brought on this beautiful nature thing going on. Are they just gonna set up shop here instead of being like nomads? Are they just gonna stay here now, and this will be the Shire that develops from this? That's kind of where my thought is.
Yeah, but I guess I think they kept moving on at the end of the show.
Yeah,
it seemed like they went the opposite direction as Nori and we can't really call him Gandalf yet because we're not 100% sure.
But he's not Baby Yoda, that's for sure.
No, and a lot of other people were thinking it was going to be one of the blue wizards.
I mean, it would be cool if it was someone who wasn't Gandalf.
It would be interesting. So the blue wizards, who we never saw in Lord of the Rings or anything, but are part of the books, could be. That's what a lot of people were hoping for. It was going to be one of them. I don't know much about them, but to me, it definitely seems. It just feels like Gandalf to me. It just feels like some of his good nature, like the way he talked in the last episode to Nori, felt like Gandalf. The way he said words, So we'll see. Maybe it's another red herring that they're giving us. Who knows? But they did make a point not to totally reveal that. It was I liked that storyline though.
I did too. I mean,
I thought it was cool because the other thing too is his general nature of this character seemed to be good. Like, they did make him seem to be dark at times, but like overall he was so confused.
Yeah. It was hard to determine what the red herring was. It's like, is it the good stuff that he does? Is that the red herring? Or is it the bad things that happen?
Yeah. And I guess it was the bad things that happened. Really
bad things.
And it's the same with Halbrand and / Sauron, because he was doing a lot of things I thought were good. I mean, he was helping them. He was helping fight the orcs, which that was a group of orcs that did, I think, obviously rebelled against Sauron at one point, so they would be his enemies anyway. At least Adar would be.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's cool. It was
those big twists.
It was a big twist, and I like how they did the reveal. They really made you think that he was Sauron for a second, and then quickly, no, he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Star. So that was cool. Then it was like, oh crap, okay, so who is Sauron for the rest of that episode? And then we find out.
Like, well, Sauron. To me, Sauron was always like the giant monster, metal warrior, wizard. Just dark lord, just not even something who's like human-ish. You know what I mean? So I like that it's like he has motivations and a personality and things like that. I think that's kind of
cool.
That's going to be interesting to see.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty awesome. And we see how cunning he is in this. He basically manipulates Galadriel to get what he wants. And
which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So let's back it up to those are the big the big reveals at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few different storylines going throughout this, and they kind of intersect at different points.
Not all of them resolve either.
No,
at the end of the season.
So anyway, the ones we were just talking about, one of the ones we were just talking about was Galadriel and Halbrand. And Galadriel, again, like you said from the beginning, she was on revenge for her brother. We eventually also learn she's also revenge for her husband. That's something we learned halfway through the season. They both died during this war. So she is like,
or at least
revenge.
We don't have proof her husband died, but she thinks he died.
Yeah.
We don't know 100% certainty. So, but she believes he's dead.
Yeah. And then she runs into Halbrand on the boat after the elves, basically including Elrond. Young Elrond, if you remember Elrond from Lord of the Rings, who was Hugo Weaving. And that this is a younger version of him, who I
played
really like, by the way.
Yeah, played by Robert Aramayo. And do you know what else he's in?
What?
Do you recognize him from anything else? Think real hard.
If you're gonna say Last Kingdom, I'm gonna be so surprised.
Game of Thrones, bro. He was young Ned Stark in the flashbacks.
Oh yeah. I knew I recognized him. I was like, where is he from?
Yeah.
That's a completely different character though, because like Ned Stark is so
he's now played the younger version of two people that were in Lord of the Rings. One was in, with Sean Bean in Game of Thrones. And now Hugo Weaving's younger self. Dude, this guy's been in. I hope he's a fan of the genre. He's in it. Too. Dude, that's awesome.
At the very least, he has to be now. Yeah. I mean, he's in both.
Thought he did a great job though.
I really liked him as Elrond. I saw someone else when they were talking. They're like, I don't like Galadriel and Elrond. They're not even the same people. I really liked Elrond. I don't know if he's
same with Galadriel. Morfydd Clark was, I thought, really good.
I thought all the acting was good, except there's these like a few friends in Numenor. Isildur and his friends, I think they seem sometimes to me it's kind of cheesy, kind of shitty.
I liked Isildur though.
I liked Isildur. I didn't like Isildur. But anyway,
you didn't like his acting?
I didn't like his character, I guess I should say. I didn't.
Oh, his character, but I thought the actor was decent.
Yeah, I thought he was good.
I really liked the guy who played his dad, Lloyd Owen, who played Elendil. I thought he was good. There's one scene that was a little weird for me with him. With Elendil was when, Elendil had been like pro elf. He'd been like supporting Galadriel the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the queen ended up making her vow to Galadriel before they went back to Numenor, he was kind of anti-elf at that point. He was like, I wish I never brought her along. And he did that one scene where he turned around and looked sad and looked angry. To me, that wasn't the best scene in the world. It didn't feel great. Do you remember when Theoden of Rohan, he had a scene where like he was just broken and crying?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a great, like I felt that. I didn't feel it with him when he was kind of showing his remorse.
Yeah.
I mean, he had just lost his son Isildur at that moment.
Like nobody seemed really upset. That is,
I know. And he had just had like a great bonding moment because the whole time Isildur was sort of like the troublemaker, like the son who like got out of being in the Royal Navy, and he's the head of it. So it's like, that's a bad look on him.
Yeah.
he's not proud of him, and Isildur's trying to prove himself in different ways. But by the end, like, they kind of come together and they have an embrace, which was really cool. But I like the actor Lloyd Owen. I thought he did a great job, and I'm excited to see more of him.
Me too.
Moving forward.
Yeah, I thought everyone was good. But anyway, though, so yeah, kind of going into the characters you just mentioned, though. Galadriel and Halbrand. They then, after the ship, there was a monster in the water that, and they're on this broken ship, and he finds her knife. They bond over that, and they get taken by Isildur's father to Numenor, and that's when we get the Numenor plot line, which is the king is sick. He's basically going through, like, it seems like dementia, Alzheimer's kind of thing, and the queen regent,
Miriel.
What's her name?
Miriel.
Yeah, thank you for saying it, so I didn't butcher it.
Say.
She's the one in charge, and then Galadriel ends up trying to convince the queen to go with her. And again, her motivation is pretty much just to get back at Sauron, but she also is doing the right thing because she's getting the Numenorians. I
think you had it right.
To go then, and let's go kill some orcs. Let's go to Middle Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up eventually going to Middle Earth. And that's
but she also has this vision too of Numenor being destroyed by a huge wave. So like, she has this impending doom that I feel like she feels she needs to act upon.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes that also definitely plays a role in her wanting to go and do something about it,
because they have that orb upstairs.
The
old orb. So that her and apparently her dad had seen the same vision, and that's sort of what made him age so quickly and become sickly. Or is that her dad?
Is her late husband's dad? Maybe.
Fuck. Sorry. The king had the same vision. We'll cut that. Sorry. The king apparently had the same vision. And that's kind of made him age quickly and crippled him into the bed. So, so she just has that sense of impending doom for Numenor.
So that's where that plot line kind of goes. And then also, while all of that is going on, we also have back in the Southlands, we have where's the names here? Arondir,
right.
Or an elf.
Arondir.
Yeah, and there's these elves there who are sort of guarding the Southlands, who are kind of in charge of the humans there.
Yeah, because those humans actually were followers of Morgoth.
Yeah. I mean, these are descendants. So this happened a long time ago. There's probably none of the people there were actually
followers.
Yeah.
Except for a couple of them.
Maybe like a few of the older ones,
who actually do act upon it later.
Yes. But also, so he's guarding that town, and it's clear that he also has this relationship with
Bronwyn.
Thank you. And also she has a son, Theo. And so there's tension in the town with the elves and that, and eventually weird stuff starts coming out of the ground. It's orcs, and they end up capturing all the elves, the elven guards of the town, and they're having them in like this slave camp thing,
digging tunnels, because the orcs in the show cannot be in sunlight, otherwise they get burnt.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Was that the case in the movies too? It could be in the sun.
Well, the Uruk-hai could. I mean, they're running in the sun.
Yeah,
fine. I don't know about the actual orcs, because we find out too in this, the orcs in Mordor are fine because it's covered by like that smog. It's the dark land. Like, they can be outside all the time there. I don't know we don't see it in Lord of the Rings.
And I think about in Lord of the Rings, I'm like, did we ever see them in the sun? Like, it was a lot of times we saw them at night, and then a lot of times you could say where they're in the forest, there's shade in the forest, so that's why they're fine.
I'm trying to think.
I was like, so I don't know.
They certainly don't like the sun when Gandalf comes down with it, and
that's right.
But that was, to me, in the movie, I just thought they were being blinded at that point.
And again, this is, maybe they evolved to the point they could be in the sun. I don't know, but at this
maybe
point,
I don't know. If you know, let us know in the comments.
Let us know. Explain to us. But that's and eventually, what's his name again?
Arondir.
Arondir. He also gets captured, and he's in the slave camp, and that's probably the most one of the most interesting. I really liked when Galadriel fought the ice troll. The ice troll thing was going down, and this was also pretty awesome action when all the elves were trying to escape, and it was just very, because all the elves are just so precise. And if you remember, like Legolas was like walking on the snow, and he could like Fred Flintstone down the nose of one of the elephants.
He could slide. He could like skateboard down the staircase on a shield and keep shooting. He could climb staircases that were falling from the sky.
Yes,
that one was stupid. But anyway,
so that's elves. So I just loved when they were like working on breaking out, and they were like how methodical it was, and I just loved the system of it. It was just so pleasing to the eyes when they were just like, they start banging on their chains, and it was kind of unfortunate. Then like they all started getting shot and killed pretty easily. Then when they released the dogs, that was pretty crazy. This was also too, mentioning that, and also the ice troll. The show was a little more violent than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like we saw more blood, and like the old show was, the movies were violent for sure, right? But like there wasn't that blood, gore kind of stuff going on. This show had it, which again, I'm not upset with, because it's like you're showing the violence anyways. But
that one scene later when Adar has them trapped in like that tavern there, and he's trying to get the hilt, which we'll talk about soon.
Oh yeah.
And he starts killing people. And that was also too like, whoa. Violent.
Definitely.
But anyway,
a little different than Lord of the Rings in that way, I would say.
Yeah. But what you're referring to with where the caves, because they're digging these tunnels so the orcs can move without being in the sunlight.
Yeah.
And that fight scene was great. Like you said, turns out to be nothing. And at the very end of it, we get sort of the cliffhanger of that episode with Adar walking through. We don't really get to see quite what he looks like yet. And I was really compelled by this character.
It was interesting.
That was very interesting. And like I think I said earlier, they like give him a glove that looks like Sauron's glove. And so they're really trying to make you think he's Sauron, like an early version of him.
He's dark and evil. He's hanging around the orcs. So you're thinking, I was like, maybe that's him. I was like, I don't know. He seems like he's maybe not cool enough though, But anyway, though, that plot line goes, and eventually Arondir is let go to give the town a message, basically that they're coming, they're going to kill them all. They should just leave. Like they're taking back the Southlands. But then they decide to stay and fight. And that's when we get a cool battle with the townspeople and what we think is the orcs. And there was a decent amount of orcs, but it turns out a lot of the townspeople who
had defected.
Had defected because they didn't want to die from the orcs. Were sent then to kill their friends, which I thought was just.
But there's also not just that they didn't want to die, but like going back, there were a few of them, like the one old man, who actually like probably have been sort of handed down this theology from their ancestors who once served Morgoth. Because he was like, we should support Sauron. And that guy in particular kind of went the extra mile to do so.
Oh yeah.
By joining,
he was their
Adar.
MVP.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was
and
MVP
he even thought Adar was Sauron at first.
Yeah.
That made him really mad. Adar mad. So he hit him or something.
Yeah.
But ultimately they take them, and like you said, what happens is they all go to like the keep with the tower, and Arondir has a plan. He's gonna like make them go in the tower, then they're going to blow it up. Maybe that'll kill some, and we're going to go hide in the village and make our stand there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty cool. I like it when, like, okay, well, we have a bunch of people here who aren't warriors, but I'm going to teach you how to be warriors for this. You know, like whatever you can do. Like maybe you get on the roof with a crossbow and shoot. I like that. You know, we got a plan here. And so, like you said, when they come down, it looks like there's orcs, and I think there were some orcs in there because they showed up.
Especially the big one that was fighting Arondir that almost killed him.
That was crazy.
Again, another violent scene where he's like stabbing him through the eye, and the blood is dripping off of the orc's face into his mouth and face.
Crazy. Thank God, Bronwyn was there to save the day.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, they killed their own townspeople, people they were neighbors with, just the week before, and pretty crazy.
I like that because it at first it just felt like kind of a nice Lord of the Rings clean. Here's the bad guys, here's the good guys.
We did it,
and then they're like, we won, and then they take off the masks, and it's
Great
like
twist.
their neighbors. It's like
Great
Bob.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah, really good twist.
And then it's just like, well, now we've lost some people, and they haven't even lost like probably even like a percent, like a noticeable percentage of their own orcs, and then the orcs just start coming down. Then
and it's over. It's over. And what is Adar after here? By the way, his elf name? Well, he was one of those like elves who was one of the original ones, I think. Turned orc.
Yeah, so
right?
He was an elf, and then he was like different, and then his offspring or whatever eventually evolved into what is the orcs now.
Yeah,
like
exactly. So they're all his offspring.
Yeah,
which is crazy. But he doesn't look anything like them, really.
No.
And he does still some elvish things, like he plants these seeds before that battle. And Galadriel, I think, is talking about the same thing. Was it Galadriel or was it Arondir? Maybe Arondir was talking about planting the seeds. So it shows that he still clings to some elven values there. But anyway, when he's up at the tower thing, he finds this sort of mural that looks like Sauron's helmet and the hilt. And this hilt he's looking after has been found by Theo. How did he find it again?
I think he found it when that orc broke in the first time.
That's right, yeah.
So it's like, did that orc have it? And it's like, well, you already had it then. Or maybe because they were digging the mines, that's how they found it, was in the mine, and that whole thing.
I couldn't remember if it was that or if it was the guy had it that was in that village. That was sort of the Sauron follower. But
I think he found it with that orc, because I think
could be
he ends up stabbing him with like the short end of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
The thing with that's I love blades like this. I love like artifacts like this. And like for the blade to like fully appear, you have to like stab yourself, so it like takes your own blood.
Yeah.
And I did watch a video on it. There is lore about the blade that I would butcher if I told you, but really cool, I thought, this hilt. And obviously very dark magic.
Oh yeah.
So
I was like, dude, anything
it's like a Sauron thing.
Blood in to make work, like it's not a good thing.
No. So it was pretty cool. And the kid has it, and of course it's one of those things like he doesn't want to give it up. This thing's freaking awesome. I mean,
blood sword.
But it's also like one of those dark artifacts that probably kind of has a beckoning to it. Like, and of course, the hilt thing by the statue of Sauron looks like it, so it's like a key as well. And that's what Adar is after. So anyway, smartly, they like give it to Galadriel, and they hide it when they all come. And when they start killing people, they give it to Galadriel. Yeah, no. Sorry. I'm stupid. So
yeah.
So first, when Adar comes, they start killing people, and like Arondir doesn't want to tell them anyway, even though they're killing people. Bronwyn doesn't want to give in, but Theo gives in when they're going to kill his mom.
Yeah.
And he gives it to them.
And then that's when Galadriel and the Númenóreans ride into town. And also too, I just loved that how elegant and cool the Numenorians like armor was, you know, like because only in a fantasy world, like I like our historical fiction shows, Last Kingdom and those sorts of things. I like when they do the chainmail, the basic,
the dirty looking.
I like that stuff.
Yeah.
But then like a show like this, I want them to go all out, shiny, cool armor, something that like I would want to wear. And it's just like it's even the low level guys, like the Isildur, who is just like he just cleans stables and he gets the cool armor and gets to walk out. I'm like, so like level 1, if you're playing a video game at level 1, you get this armor. Like I was like, that's cool, dude.
And don't forget, Elendil and Isildur are whose ancestors? Aragorn.
Oh yes.
So I'm pretty sure Elendil is one of like the first kings of Gondor. Like I think he branches off in history and helps create Gondor.
Oh, okay.
I think. We'll see if that's. I think that's from the books, but
is the one right who doesn't put the ring. He keeps the ring. He doesn't put it in the fires of Mount Doom. Yeah. Which I wonder if we'll see in this show. I wonder if we're going to see that.
Very interesting. That would be very interesting. So obviously him and Elrond are going to have probably something to do together because they're in that scene together.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so it's cool to think that too. Like, oh, these guys are, Aragorn comes from their blood.
Yeah,
and there's a certain nobility to Elendil that you can kind of see.
Mm-hmm.
It's very noble.
Sure.
So I'm very excited to see what happens with their characters. Actually,
so this is where the Galadriel plot line, where she has the Numenors coming in, and this is where the Arondir's plot line, where they intersect because she rides in with the Numenors, and they come and they just start killing the orcs then, and it's pretty sweet. It's a sweet battle, like we already had the sweet, like the townspeople battle in Arondir, and now here we got these are the real people, these are real warriors coming in, and like you said, very intelligently, Arondir's like, that guy has got some crazy artifact. Go get him. That's the guy you need.
Yes.
She goes. I love that. I love how just efficient. Like no one was like, "Oh no, he's getting away." Like they ran down and got him.
Yeah.
I like that.
And like they got him, and that's the whole thing we already talked about when Halbrand stabs the hand.
Mm-hmm.
A little confused for me. So it seemed like Halbrand wanted to kill him there, but didn't, because Galadriel stopped him. And then later, like Halbrand sort of stopped Galadriel from like killing. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I was like, what are we
now knowing he's Sauron?
Turns?
Like, I don't think he wants Adar, the guy who did ultimately allegedly defeat him at one point, to be around. So I don't know. I'm a little confused
more
about
that. Their backstory now.
Yeah, a little confused about why he was so apt to stop Galadriel when he was captured.
Yeah.
Maybe again, just trying to sell himself to Galadriel to stay in her good graces. Maybe.
Yeah.
To show, oh, I'm not a bad guy.
Because the Southlands, though, and it's interesting because again, the Southlands people start praising who we now know is Sauron. They start praising him as the king, the rightful ruler of the Southlands. And then it turns out, though, when everything seems all hunky dory, like we won the day, it turns out that the real hilt wasn't in there. That he switched it off to the old man who was the follower.
So nobody looked.
No one. I guess no one looked.
No one when they got Orin there, like took it and like looked, or like, oh shit, Galadriel, what is this? And like she opens it.
They definitely should have.
Yeah, because I mean, it would have made more sense like if they did it that way. Because didn't they bring it back to Theo? And I was also like, why are you giving it back to him to begin with? And it was like Theo who unwrapped it.
Oh yeah.
And I was kind of like, why would you give it back to him?
Yeah, what do we do? Yeah, we need to make sure this thing is safe.
I sort of thought it was a joke at first. I thought like, oh, they gave it back. Oh, they just gave him an axe, and like she has the real one. Like, but no, they gave it to the old man follower from the village, and he fulfills the deed. So, somehow, Adar like anticipated something would happen, I guess, and switched them out real quick to a less suspecting person, somewhat of a Gandalf move. Give it to like the less powerful being to go do Smart, 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 smart. And that's why like Adar like didn't look scared at all. Like when he was captured, he's just like, I'm gonna be fine.
That's why I was wondering why he seemed all right, so smug.
Yeah. He's like so smug. And then and so the guy does it. He goes and he puts the hilt in sort of the key, and that creates a wonderful, wonderful waterfall.
Nice and cooling, refreshing.
Yeah.
No. It eventually leads to what is Mount Doom, I think, right?
Yeah. So it makes all the waters flow into what becomes Mount Doom. So they're just pouring huge amount of water into the lava, go boom, boom. Boom, boom. And it did. So this was like, damn, this is where the money came. Like they actually detonated a real volcano and filmed it. It was pretty nuts.
It was
pretty nuts.
I love the visual they did with like how Galadriel was like, it was like all red and stuff.
Yeah, I think the start of the next episode they really did that, and that's the point. The orcs can just be outside, and Adar tells them, "You need no longer hide in the shadows. Like the sun can't get you here." But
I loved it, and all the Numenors and stuff that they finally get together and they start leaving. But then, I think it was at the end of the episode, and you see the who's the evil elf orc daddy? What's his name?
Well, Adar or Orin. Orin's is like elf name, I think. All the orcs call him Adar.
All right, so Adar.
Or Adar.
And he just kneels down, and the location that always shows up at the top, the title, they went from the Southlands to Mordor.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty freaking cool.
I was not expecting Mordor's origins in this.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So it's kind of interesting because, again, Sauron is the leader of Mordor, right? So did he kind of want this to happen, or does he eventually take over? This wasn't something he necessarily planned. I don't know, but it's cool. Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if he cared. I don't know. It's interesting, Yeah, I'll have to think more on that. That's interesting. But yeah, it was interesting episode. Now Adar is out at large again, so he'll probably be in season 2. With some more orcs. It'll be interesting to see now, is he still an enemy of Sauron? Like, who does Sauron have on his side now? Does he still have a huge following hidden away there somewhere that he can call upon? We'll find out next season. But pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I thought. Then all the Numenorians and Galadriel, they all end up working their way out of the fog. And
oh yeah, Miriel at one point, she asks, how much longer of the fog do we have left? And they're like, oh my god, like we've been out of the fog for like an hour.
Yeah.
And find out she's blind. She's been blinded. And Isildur too, we said that they thought we lost him, and obviously we know he didn't die because this is another Isildur. He had gone in to try to save some people in a burning building, and toppled in on him. So they never show him again in the show. They show his horse. Actually, they let his horse go.
I like that.
I think
one,
and it just goes right back to him. And by the way, like, Elendil was like saying some elvish things to the horse, because when we find Numenor is in a state where they're like no longer really accepting of elves anymore. Where before the elves kind of built them the city, they kind of paved the way for the humans' way of life here in Numenor. But they're no longer like loyal to the elves. That's why there's so much contention toward Galadriel. But he, the whole time, Elendil, is sort of like clinging onto the old ways of like, we should trust the elves. We should befriend them, And that's why he keeps kind of vouching for her this whole time. And so it's interesting to see him say some elvish words to the horse, talking to the horse.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was really reminiscent when he was talking to the horse, though, too. It kind of reminded me of Aragorn when he's like talking to the horse and
it's cool,
calming it down.
Also, which is a nice parallel because we know that's his ancestor. When Galadriel is chasing Adar, thinking he has the hilt, she says something to her horse. It's the same thing that Arwen said to her horse when she was running away from the wraiths, I think.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
which
It's
is
like the same
some
something to make the
elfin
horse go
phrase.
faster. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, run or we're gonna neuter you, but just in Elfish. Oh geez. Okay. All right.
Oh man. Yeah, but so another big storyline in this one, as we're gonna now switch our
Yes.
mindset to the world of elves and dwarves.
Dwarf and elves.
We get to see sort of a new area called Linden, which is where the king of the elves, Gil-galad, resides. It's like a very high elf society. And we
Very
find
pretty.
Elrond there. Very pretty. I love it. I love it. Just like Rivendell is just probably the prettiest, honestly, Rivendell of like any Lord of the Rings place, I would say. It's got to be the most beautiful. And this one's awesome too.
Yeah.
Numenor was awesome. I thought Numenor looked great.
Yeah, Numenor looked pretty sweet.
And I always thought Gondor looked pretty awesome. Or Minas Tirith. I always thought looked pretty cool as a city.
Yeah.
But as far as beauty, I thought Rivendell. Anyway, we also get to see. So anyway, let's talk about the elves first. So the elves, Gil-galad, they have a big issue going on. They have this like tree, and they're noticing on like a lot of the nature, this dark force is kind of going over the leaves and the trees and like killing it, almost like a disease. And he's talking to Elrond, and he says, "Look, like our light is basically fading. We're not going to be able to survive anymore with this darkness coming over unless we do something about it." And so they're talking about leaving, I think. But Elrond is trying to find an answer, and he ends up finding it at his good friend Durin's house.
Well, so the king knew that. Well, he thought that the dwarves might have found Mithril.
Yeah.
Which is, if you remember, it was Frodo's like undershirt, sort of
right,
bulletproof.
Very, very powerful element.
Yeah, vest was made out of. So they're talking about that. Well, anyway, they haven't mentioned it yet.
Right.
But he sends, because the king knows that Elrond is friends with who's the dwarf?
Durin the Fourth.
That's it. Durin the Fourth.
Who, by the way,
they're friends.
Owain Arthur, who played him, was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
As was his father, Durin the Third, Peter Mullen, who we've seen now in many things,
Peter
like
Mullen's
Westworld. Like what's the other thing we saw him in recently?
Ozark.
Ozark is fantastic.
Cursed.
That's right, Cursed. He's a fantastic actor, and he was great in this.
Oh yeah.
Both of them are great.
He's great in everything. And so anyway, the king knew Elrond was friends with Durin the Fourth. So he sends him there like, hey, just see what's going on, figure out what they're doing. But he's also like, well, this is my friend. This is also a good chance for me to just catch up with my friend.
Right.
But Durin's very suspicious of him first. And he's also very hurt because they were very close friends. And for the elves, because they just live forever, like 50 years, 100 years, whatever, is like no amount of time for them. It's like, all right, well, I didn't see you in a week, But for Durin, he's pretty hurt because it's like he's missed his wedding, he's missed the birth of his kids. Like there's so many things that have happened in Durin's life that his friend Elrond wasn't there for. So he's pretty pissed at him. And also too, just the dwarves don't like the elves because the elves are always trying to steal their shit. So there's a lot of reason to be suspicious of him. But you can also tell Durin's also just personally hurt. And I really like the storyline with them two, and going off, and they eventually find out there is Mithril there, and I really just like the bro the bro moments between the two of them. Just the moment where he's confronting me, like, hey, you missed my wedding, you missed my kid's birth, and like, I really like that stuff. And then eventually cool. when they're becoming friends again, and Elrond has to come back to him, and he finds out the king ends up telling him, like, hey, the tree's dying, we're all gonna have to leave forever, unless we get the tree to stay alive. We're gonna need the mithril that I think you found there.
Yeah.
But he had already sworn to Durin that he wouldn't tell the elves about the mithril there. So he's like, I can't tell you. I mean, I might have saw something, but I can't tell you that it was mithril. I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
Because I swore to my best bro.
Yeah.
So when he goes back to him and is basically like telling him, like, hey, like, all of my people are gonna die unless you get us some of that sweet mithril.
Sweet mithril, yep.
And
the thing is during the third, the king right now, and by the way, this is the place. I'm pretty sure this is the place they have to go through in Lord of the Rings, right?
What's the name of it? Place with all the goblins and stuff.
Yeah. So, and the Balrog, which we see that the Balrog's already there, hanging out in the deep waterfall of mithril that is no. But Durin the third is very against the continued mining for mithril or mining in that area. Is he just stubborn and like doesn't want to risk it? Because it seems like it's very just dangerous to do.
It did
seems like things are almost collapsing. And is that why? Is he just trying to preserve what he's got? He knows it's just better if we just leave it. Or does he know there's a Balrog down there that he doesn't want to mess with?
I was a little PO'd because the Balrog had been in the trailers even.
Yeah.
And that the little bit that you see of the Balrog in the trailers, like, that's all you see in the show. No one fights a Balrog. Balrog doesn't do anything cool. There's just that little clip of a Balrog hanging out around no one else.
Yep. But he's pretty pissed that a leaf got dropped in. By the way, every time the mithril's near like nature, it just heals it right away. So it's very obvious it's going to work.
Yeah.
And Elrond's going to do everything he can. But anyway, Durin the Third is sort of the barrier from getting it because he convinces Durin the Fourth after a long time to do it. And Durin the Fourth is like, so you want me to save all elves? You're saying, he's playing it like that. Really cool.
Yeah.
Being funny. He's got to spin it in a way,
Mm-hmm.
And he tries, but they get caught and they find it too. They find so much of it. And at that very point, Durin the Third comes in and says, "No, yeah, you're done. And they have a great fight, like between father and son, like really heartbreaking. He takes his like necklace off and throws it on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Leave it. You're no longer my son," or something like that.
You. Yeah.
It doesn't belong to you. Great acting from the two guys, Owain Arthur and Peter Mullen, really making you feel it. Look like great dwarves too.
Yeah, the dwarves look really good in this for sure.
Yeah. So cool moments there. Yeah.
So anyway, we know with the mithril though, they did have a little bit of mithril.
Right.
And so that was given to Elrond. And that's what Elrond takes to Celebrimbor. And eventually we know
and Sauron gives the idea like, well, can't you just amplify it with like another element?
Yeah. Even though we only have a little bit, we can still make it work,
Yeah.
And eventually the idea is a crown. And I'm like, ooh, what's this unique crown? And then eventually, they're like, well, that's too big.
Like it's got to be a circle, so the power just keeps going.
We need a circle for the power.
How about a bracelet? No, it's
too big.
Ring. Wouldn't that be funny if, like, in the show, they end up making a bracelet, and like they went and changed all of the the Lord of the Rings canon to Lord of the Bracelets. And like they went in and edited all the movies, and instead of the ring, it was just like a, like the Italian guys who wear bracelets on their wrists.
Yeah.
It's just that. It's like a loose chain bracelet.
Just every scene with Sam and Frodo, there's
just edited
giant bracelet.
There's just like a block over their hand, like their screen with a hand with a bracelet on it. Re-release all the movies exactly the same, except for those edits.
Now on digital, the new
Lord of the Bracelets,
5K.
So anyway, no, they made rings, and they made 3 rings of power. So there might be a little confusion. There's a lot of rings in Lord of the Rings.
I am a little confused.
I know. So the 3 rings were the elven rings, right?
Okay. Yes.
There were 7 rings given to dwarves, I believe. We don't see yet. Then there were the 9 rings given to men. That is talked more about in Lord of the Rings. Woo! And then there was the 1 ring to rule them all. That we assume Sauron is heading to Mount Doom right now to make that.
Mm.
So that's how the rings go. But these rings are they're the elven rings, I believe. And they're nice. They're cool looking rings.
Yeah. You know what? I never understood why the ring from the Lord of the Rings though was so important. Like it just made you invisible, and like it made Smeagol crazy. Like
made Smeagol, but I don't think they're powerful enough beings to use that.
That's what I hope.
I've been thinking about it too, because
what I've always thought since I saw it, I was like, why is
they show it
the one that rules it all? It's just
they show Sauron using it. They show Sauron using it for power. Like he just like wipes people out just by like
yeah.
Well,
I hope they explain that.
And I think
wasn't he invisible? I don't know.
I think to use it, you probably have to have evil intent too. I would assume you gotta have, you know what I mean? You probably have to like give in the darkness, and all the people who had it. I mean, Gollum, Smeagol was kind of a pathetic creature, not so much I don't know. And
not a cool person.
Obviously, like I don't think Frodo would have used it to conquer anybody.
Yeah, maybe if it corrupted him, he could use it and
maybe
do something with it. I don't know.
Maybe. But all I know is when you use the rings in Shadow of Mordor, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And you can do anything. But anyway, I digress. So stuff with the dwarves I thought was cool. A lot of cool bro moments between Elrond and Durin. By the way, a little thing that I heard irked some hardcore Lord of the Rings fans is Durin is only supposed to be used for a king who apparently resembles the original Durin so much that's the only time you get to use the name, not just every son in the lineage is Durin. So that's, I know, one small thing that irked Lord of the Rings fans. I didn't know, so I didn't care. Well, that like the theory is Durin the Fourth would not have done anything enough to prove himself yet in his life to be Durin yet. He would have a different name, which they do allude to, that he has another name in Dwarven that they only keep within the family or something.
Well, maybe now because of him being disowned or whatever, maybe that's what he will go by or something,
Yeah. So overall, another thing too, I really liked the Harfoots. One kind of unique thing I thought, like looking at the trailer, I was like, I don't know if I like their costumes. It looks kind of weird with like the leaves on their head and stuff like that, with like the branches on their head. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, it ended up being super cool.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple scenes where they use those things for camouflage, basically, when they hide, and that's their skill. Is they're very good at hiding. That's probably how they survive so long. And there's a couple of those scenes where, like, if you freeze frame it, I bet I'd have a hard time finding them before they stood up.
Yeah, we had talked about this when they first introduced the Harfoots they show that like there's some hunters walking by, and as soon as they leave, they just all pop out of the ground. They throw off like tarps and I was like, I was thinking at the time that was just the only time that they were ever going to show something like that. They just wanted to show why they're covered in branches and stuff. But there's another time when when he's like freaking out and he comes down to the party without them knowing, and they all like crouch down, and there's this shot that's looking down from the stranger's point of view, and everything, it just looks like it's a bare, empty camp to me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people start to move, and it's
everywhere.
It's the Harfoots, and it's their costumes like had made them blend into the surroundings and look like dirt and like wood and piles of crap and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Piles of crap.
Just piles.
Hate to be that guy.
Well, just think too. If that was your costume, like no one's gonna investigate. I'm like, I'm not going over there.
That's the best one. Yeah,
that's the best one. It's just a big horse pile of shit. Just big horse shit. You know?
Oh my god. Absolutely. Oh, I had a thought.
Was it about horse shit?
No.
But I thought it was pretty cool then. I was like, all right, their costumes, like you said, like they made sense, and
yeah,
they was justified. So I mean, I don't think I can't complain about it. You know, I was like, I didn't see anyone in that shot until they moved.
Totally. No, it was cool. It was cool. I liked the Harfoots. They were a cool group. You know, they're sort of cheesy characters, just like you'd expect.
Yeah. And we already kind of talked about
when they said goodbye, because Nori decides to go with the stranger at the end.
Yeah.
And their goodbye, I was like, damn, I'm feeling this. Oh, yeah. I'm feeling this just like back in Lord of the Rings, like when they'd say goodbye to each other. It just was really getting me.
Yeah. Her dad's speeches, I really loved. When he was like, we're proud, and you know, we're Harfoot. We'll go through. Like, it just felt so Lord of the Rings to me. It was just positive, motivational, like triumph over bad circumstance. Like that's Lord of the Rings, man.
Yeah. And like
felt so.
And they are truly like the power of kindness and like good.
Yeah.
They're just so nice. You know what it reminds me of, dude? To be honest,
Canadians.
No. The Christmas movie, The Grinch.
Yeah. Yes.
Like he's the dad. He's Cindy Lou Who's dad.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's kind of a weenie. I hate to say it, but he's right, and he's righteous, and he's
strength of character.
He sticks by who he is. And it's awesome, and that's what I felt about the dad and the mom too.
When he's like giving a speech, it's the speech at the end of the Jim Carrey movie when he's we're the Who, like Christmas isn't in the gifts. It was always here. It's what Cindy Lou's been trying to tell us the whole time.
And so when they say goodbye, and then
I'm glad he took our gifts.
I'm glad they burned our stuff.
I'm glad they burned our carts, because we're the Hardfoot.
Yeah.
And little Brandyfoot has been trying to tell us this the whole time. And the stranger has a big heart.
Yeah.
Thank you, stranger.
Yeah. And we lose the leader of it. Burroughs is the main. He's like their track finder and the leader of their colony.
Yeah, he was kind of annoying every now and then, but
because he's the leader. He's trying to keep things in line, and he's not a huge fan of this big guy who's sort of causing problems.
Yeah.
So he was a little annoying, but at the end, he ended up being doing some pretty badass stuff to help.
Yeah, he sacrificed himself. He got shot with an arrow.
Himself, and he died. And I liked his death scene. They didn't really show it, but they show probably how he died. I just wanted to watch the sunrise. And they sat with him, you know, and that was pretty powerful, I thought.
And also too, like you said, with the goodbyes, before we got distracted with the Cindy Lou, when initially Nori goes to her friend, and like she just like doesn't say anything to her, and then Poppy, and then eventually she comes running up to her and is like crying and stuff, and it just got me. It got me.
Yeah.
That was good.
I love too, like they break up the the sort of like heartfelt feeling we had with a little bit of comedy when she goes back up to the stranger and she's like, okay, well, should we go? Yeah, I don't know where to go. He's like, oh, that way. Or he says like,
Yeah.
I smell something this way. He's like, when in doubt, always follow your nose, which was what kind of made us think maybe it's Gandalf.
Very Gandalf-y.
Very Gandalf. Well, he says it. He says it in Lord of the Rings. Always, I can hear
follow your nose.
Or Ian McKellen saying it. Yeah. Trying to think if there's any other huge things. There's so much that happened. There's so many different storylines.
Yeah, so we end off with Gandalf and who we think is going off with Nori to go find what is Gandalf looking for? What is he looking for?
We don't know.
Maybe where he came from, or
the constellation in the sky, right?
Yeah. And then Sauron is going to Mount Doom. We see him going into Mordor. And then we see Galadriel with Elrond and Ring Guy, Celebrimbor. They made the 3 rings. And I think Durin and his wife, who I liked her too. She did some cool singing.
Yeah.
I like that she was motivational, and
she was.
And she was
always picked him up. Durin was such a cool character because he was like very much emotional. He's very emotional. He's proud, but he also faked being proud. Like, we find out later that Elrond let him win the competition they had earlier.
I don't like that. I want the dwarf to have won the rock smashing cup.
I know. But yeah, so
she was like motivational.
He got
was
down
also
a lot.
Stubborn.
Yeah,
she was a really good counterpart to him.
Disa was her name. Yeah, very good counterpart. Cool family, And I love how like they welcome Elrond in most of the time, like he's part of their family. Yeah. He's like an extension, and but he can tell when they're not being truthful with him. He knows, and they can't lie for too long. They need to like.
But anyway, Durin and his wife, though, they're basically like talking. You're going to be the ruler here someday, not someone else. You are. So
yeah,
they're kind of planning on making king moves, and and then Arondir and the Southland people, they're with the Numenor people right now. And their plan is to stay in Middle Earth. And
Numenor went back to Numenor.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. So the queen, they went back to Numenor, remember? And at the very end, there was that like the maid was in with the old man.
Yeah.
And he was going crazy and he was out of his bed, and she went up and the orb was there and she looked into it, and then they cut and we don't see anything else. That's it. But when they get back to Numenor, there's all the black banners, which signifies the king is dead. So
that's
apparently
that's right. Good point. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously, what else was there? No, is that it? Is that everything?
I think that's it. I think we got it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they'll follow up with the rest of the Harfoots and where they're going, or if they're just going to focus on Nori.
Nori.
We'll find out. We'll find out next season, which I am excited for.
Me too.
I said, I think the show started kind of slow, but I thought it ended really strong. Getting a lot of cool, more Lord of the Rings lore and learning things about origin. I love that.
Same as these.
I'd like to rewatch it now and look at Halbrand and see what did we miss? Where were the signs?
Some of the things we always talk about are our favorite moments and our favorite bro moments when we're talking about the Last Kingdom. And I think the Lord of the Rings is a good place to go in. Let's
Yeah.
to talk. Let's before we get to the bro moments. Do you have a favorite moment from the show?
For me, the favorite moment has to be the reveal of Sauron. I think the reveal of Sauron was really sweet, and as somebody who was not expecting it, um, maybe I was naive, and I don't know for not expecting it, but I thought it was a great twist, and so that's probably my favorite moment of the show.
Mine's a toss up between when I really liked when Galadriel was on the boat and she had like just flashbacks of her brother and just wanted to and it just made her want to go back. Like I really liked that moment. But I would say the whole episode with the battle was just awesome. The battle was awesome, and I loved the twists in it because it just it always made you think, oh, it's just gonna be like the Lord of the Rings, and it felt like Lord of the Rings, but then like there's a twist. It's like you just killed your neighbors. Then it's like they're attacking the townspeople, and then all of a sudden the Numenors they flow in and they just sweep house, and you're like, oh, here we go, now it's good. And it's like now the volcano's blowing up, and like a lot of you are going to get hurt and injured from that. So I really like that whole episode and like all the moments in that. And
totally
What
cool.
about your favorite bro moment?
My favorite bro moment is hands down the horse just immediately going back to find Isildur. The only one who didn't give up on him. Like, come on.
Even his own dad.
Even his own dad. The horse just like, let me go get him. Like, I'm gonna find him. And the horse, as soon as he's let go, just boom.
Yeah.
Just fast sprinting, which was an awesome scene. No, but so I do think that's kind of a bro moment.
That is a bro moment for sure.
That's pretty freaking awesome. Well, when I really think of them, there's actually quite a few to choose from.
There is.
What immediately comes to mind is Durin the Fourth going behind his father's back in broship for Elrond and to help the elves, which we always knew the dwarves and elves do not have great relationship with each other. And so just him doing that, and within that there were so many like actual moments of broness, like when they're sitting on the trail, like on the rocks talking.
I think Durin was almost going to tell him his real name there.
Yeah, and Elrond stops him.
Yeah.
So that moment to me was definitely a huge bro moment.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe after you tell me yours, we'll talk about some other honorable mentions.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked. I mean, pretty much every moment between Elrond and Durin was awesome. I just because again, there was a lot of bro moments between. If you're thinking like Legolas and there's a dwarf in that.
Gimli.
Legolas and Gimli. Oh, geez. There's a lot of great moments between them. So I really like this, but I really like that it was like deeper, that they're like friends that had split apart and were like figuring out how to be friends again. I like even when they were like smashing rocks against each other, I enjoyed that. And the moment you were talking about when he like stops him from telling his real name, or even when they go to dinner with the Elven King and they're like, this table
that was awesome.
Is actually a very like holy metal for us, and
he just liked the table.
Yeah. You just like it.
He liked it and wanted it for his house.
So a lot of good moments between them. But I, also too, just when Poppy and and Nori, I mean, that their goodbye, like I would say I enjoyed more of the bro moments as the show was going on between Durin and Elrond. But when Nori and Poppy were saying goodbye, like
that got me
like Frodo and Sam kind of thing. I don't know. It just hit me.
Yep.
But just because of that though, also too, another good bro moment was between Galadriel and turns out to be Sauron, but she didn't know at the time, when they were sitting after the battle, after they had caught and they had just interrogated the what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. The orc leader.
Yeah. Adar.
They were sitting down and they had like a cool moment where they're talking about sort of their motivations and
It's fake now.
yeah. But I mean, it was a cool moment. It's still, I think they still genuinely have a bond. I think it's just that, I think it's just they want different things. She wants to kill him and he wants to rule the world. It's just,
Right.
So I'm gonna have to go though, just Durin and Elrond though, when he tells him not to tell him his real name, like that whole moment down there. I mean, I just really like that. I really like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think there's also another one where at the end with Elendil and Miriel, when they're pulling back in, they're talking about the future and he sort of vows, to stay with her or stand by her and everything. And that was nice between them. I'm sure you could pick some out between Isildur and his friends at the battle because
he
was being noble, so he was kind of helping them out. And
his one friend
wasn't as powerful for me with them, but it was cool. A lot of great wholesomeness in the show in general. I mean, you could also say between Dora and his wife, her picking him up off the floor so many times, like just awesome. Just awesome
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm committing to that moment though in the tunnels between Durin and Elrond. That's awesome. That's my pick is going.
Okay,
with
fine.
A close second of Poppy and Nori. That's what I'm going.
And then the horse.
And the horse. For real though, that's a bro moment. 100%.
It is. It's
100%.
Awesome.
That horse is clearly sensient to some degree.
Oh yeah, well, the animals are weird like that in real life too, though. Like they know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They have a weird sense about things. So.
Oh, I know they know.
I know you know they know.
Now you know that I know that they know. And I know that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's it, I think, for Rings of Power.
Yes.
Season 1. We'll see you in 2 years for season 2.
Make sure to subscribe for us. We're not releasing anything until 2 years though from now.
Yeah, exactly.
So make sure you have that notification on.
With how often we've been releasing episodes, it's not too hard to believe. I think
it's only been a couple months. It's only been
we've got more coming.
There's more coming.
We've been busy. Sorry.
I moved. He
moved.
He traveled.
Yep.
Colby
traveled a little bit.
How's work?
I've been. The Yankees are in the playoffs.
I know. As soon as baseball season comes around, I'm like, I'm losing my friend.
No, you're not. No.
For the next 4 months. But anyway, though, thank you all. If you've made it this far into the video or listening on the podcast, thank you so much. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe. Check us out on social media. We have our links down in the description below. If you're listening to this, you can watch it on YouTube. The link is below also. Give us a like, subscribe. That really helps the algorithm out, helps us keep going and get noticed. So yes, thank you all so much. And
I appreciate it.
More to come.
Let us know what you thought of Rings of Power.
Let us know what else you want us to cover.
Yes. We'll do Steve's gonna watch House of Dragons today, all of it, and we're gonna talk about that tomorrow.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Cool. No, but anyway,
it's like
we always say. Goodbye.
Goodbye.